The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the New York studio, painting the room in a warm, golden hue. Jenna Bush Hager sat quietly behind her desk, staring at the coffee cup in her hands, letting the steam fog up her glasses. Usually, she was the one asking the questions, guiding conversations with her signature warmth and humor. But today was different. Today, Jenna was the story. For weeks, she had felt a growing weight on her chest, a story lodged inside her heart that refused to be ignored. It was not a scandal nor a secret that could ruin reputations. It was personal, deeply personal, something she had carried silently through years of public life, interviews, and the smiling waves from studio cameras. Something she had to finally say. Jenna's assistant knocked lightly on the door before peeking in. "Jenna, we're live in 5 minutes," she whispered. Jenna nodded, her fingers tightening around the mug. She took a deep breath. This is it. No more running. The cameras rolled, and Jenna greeted the audience with her usual bright smile. "Good morning, everyone. Today I want to talk about something a little different." Her co-host, sitting across from her, gave a supportive nod. "Whatever it is, Jenna, we're listening." For a moment, Jenna let the silence stretch. She thought about her father, George W. Bush, and how proud he always was when she spoke her truth. About her mother, Laura, who had taught her the importance of honesty and compassion. And then she began. "I've spent a lot of my life in the public eye," Jenna said, her voice steady but softer than usual. "I've interviewed hundreds of people, shared countless stories of triumph and heartbreak, but there's a story I've kept to myself, until now." Her audience leaned in, both in the studio and at home. The pause was intentional. Jenna wanted every word to land. It's about fear, and about how fear can shape us, even when we seem strongest on the outside. Jenna took a deep sip of water and continued. She recounted her early days in journalism when she was fresh out of college, eager to make her mark. Everyone saw the confident, smiling young woman on television, but behind the scenes, Jenna was wrestling with anxiety, panic attacks that came suddenly, often in the middle of interviews or live broadcasts. She spoke of sleepless nights, the gnawing worry that she wasn't good enough, smart enough, or brave enough to handle the expectations that came with her family name and her own ambitions. "I was terrified that if anyone knew, they'd think I wasn't strong. I thought being scared meant I was weak," Jenna admitted, her voice catching slightly. She paused, looking directly into the camera. "But fear isn't weakness. It's human, and acknowledging it doesn't make you less capable. It makes you real." The studio was silent. There was no chatter, no background noise, just Jenna's words echoing in the hearts of viewers everywhere. Jenna shared how she had spent years hiding behind schedules, scripts, and carefully curated smiles. She became a master at maintaining composure, at showing the world a polished version of herself. But inside, the fear never really went away. It only evolved, showing up in new ways: pressure to succeed, the constant scrutiny of social media, and the ever-present challenge of balancing career and family. It was her daughter, Jenna explained, who had finally given her the courage to speak. One evening, after a particularly challenging day, her daughter asked why she seemed so worried all the time. The question hit Jenna like a lightning bolt. If she couldn't be honest with herself, how could she be honest with the people she loved? How could she teach her daughter that strength includes vulnerability? That night, Jenna made a decision. She would stop hiding. She would speak. She told stories of the small steps she took: seeing a therapist, journaling her fears, sharing little truths with close friends. Each act of honesty chipped away at the weight she had carried for years, and slowly she realized something profound. The people who mattered most didn't see her as fragile or weak. They saw her as real, relatable, and brave. Being public doesn't mean being perfect. It means being willing to show your humanity, to be flawed, to admit that sometimes you're scared, and that's okay. The cameras captured her every expression, her hands gripping the desk, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, the calm resolve in her voice. Jenna's co-host reached over, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. She didn't need to say a word. Jenna's story spoke for itself. Then came the part Jenna had struggled most to articulate. She spoke of the societal pressures placed on women, especially those in the spotlight, the expectation to always be cheerful, composed, and unshakable. She talked about the isolation she felt seeing other women seemingly navigate life effortlessly, while she wrestled with anxiety behind closed doors. Anyone who's listening, especially women, who feels the pressure to be perfect, you are enough. Your fears don't define you. Your struggles don't make you less capable, and you are never alone. Jenna paused again, allowing the words to resonate. The studio crew, her co-host, and even the producers behind the cameras seemed to hold their breath, feeling the weight and beauty of the moment. For Jenna, speaking these truths was liberating. She realized that the story she had feared telling the most was the story that could inspire others the most. After the show, social media exploded. Messages poured in from viewers thanking her for her honesty, sharing their own experiences with anxiety, fear, and vulnerability. Jenna read each one, her heart swelling with a mixture of relief and gratitude. She realized that in breaking her silence, she had created a bridge, a connection with countless people who had felt isolated by their own fears. Jenna's openness didn't make her life perfect. She still had anxious moments, days when fear crept in unexpectedly, but now she faced them with a newfound courage, knowing that admitting vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. A few days later, Jenna sat in a quiet corner of her favorite cafe, sipping her latte and reflecting. She thought about her father, who had always told her, "Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the willingness to act in spite of it." She thought about her mother, who had taught her the value of honesty and empathy, and she thought about her daughter, whose simple question had sparked a transformation. She pulled out her notebook and began writing. Not a script, not a show segment, just words on paper, honest and unfiltered. Words that would one day become a book, a guide, a testament to living fully, authentically, and courageously. Jenna smiled to herself, a genuine, unguarded smile. She had spoken her truth. She had faced the fear she had carried for so long, and in doing so, she had not only freed herself, but had illuminated a path for countless others to do the same. Weeks later, Jenna received a letter from a young woman in a small town in Ohio. She had watched the broadcast alone, tears streaming down her face, and finally felt understood. She wrote about her own struggles with anxiety, her feelings of inadequacy, and how Jenna's words gave her hope. Jenna held the letter close to her heart, realizing that this, connection, empathy, and shared humanity, was the true power of her voice. It wasn't about fame, public image, or ratings. It was about saying what needed to be said. It was about breaking the silence. And from that moment on, Jenna promised herself that she would continue to speak, not just for herself, but for every person who felt unseen, unheard, or afraid. Because sometimes the act of saying something aloud is the first step toward healing, toward courage, toward a world where everyone knows they are not alone. Jenna's broadcast became more than a viral moment. It sparked a movement. People across the country began sharing their stories of fear and vulnerability, creating online communities, support networks, and initiatives focused on mental health and emotional honesty. Jenna herself continued to write, to speak, and to advocate, always remembering the simple truth that had guided her journey, that speaking one's truth, no matter how frightening, is an act of courage, and courage, she knew, is contagious. In the quiet moments when the cameras were off and the studio was empty, Jenna would sometimes close her eyes and smile, feeling the freedom that comes from finally being heard. She had broken the silence, and in doing so, she had given others permission to do the same.